Somewhere in Haiti right now, a drum is being played and a woman is falling to the ground, shaking, weeping and laughing, and the people around her are not calling an ambulance. They're calling her by a different name because for the next few minutes, they believe she is not entirely herself. Something ancient has stepped into her body to say something the living needed to hear. And here's the part that should stop you cold. This practice, mocked for 2 centuries as black magic, is actually one of the most psychologically sophisticated systems of healing ever built by human beings. If you've ever felt like your pain had nowhere to go, like your grief was too big for your body, stay with this one. Part 1. Haitian Vodou. In this video, we're talking about Haitian Vodou, including where it came from, the beliefs, and why the rest of the world got it so wrong. But underneath that, this is a video about something much closer to home. It's about what happens to a person's soul when they carry more pain than they can hold alone. It's about ancestors, memory, and the parts of ourselves we split off just to survive. By the end of this video, you'll understand why an enslaved people, stripped of everything, built a religion that could hold rage, love, grief, dancing, trauma, and triumph all at once, and why that same spirituality might have something to offer you. Part 2. The problem nobody talks about. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of what people know about Vodou comes from horror movies, including pins in dolls, zombies, and curses whispered in the dark. It's a caricature built on top of colonial fear and racism, and it has done something quietly devastating. It has erased one of the most profound spiritual responses to trauma in human history. Vodou wasn't born in comfort, it was born on slave ships in cane fields and under the whip, in a place where people were told every single day that they were property and not people. And instead of breaking, they built a cosmology. That's not black magic, that's an act of staggering psychological resilience. Part 3. Where it began. Haitian Vodou emerged in the 18th century when Africans from Dahomey, the Congo and Yoruba land were forced into slavery and onto the Haitian island that was then called Saint-Domingue. Colonial law demanded they be baptized Catholic, so they did something remarkable. They didn't abandon their gods, they hid them in plain sight. The Liuowa Ezeli Dantor, spirit of fierce maternal love, was mapped onto the Black Madonna of Czestochowa. To the outside observer, it looked like a devout slave praying to a Christian icon. In reality, it was a profound communion with a force of fierce, uncompromising protection. They created Vodou, a word that quite simply means spirit or mystery. Other spirits found homes behind the faces of Catholic saints. This wasn't confusion or dilution, it was camouflage. It was resistance disguised as obedience. It was a people saying quietly, "You can control our bodies, but you will never fully control our souls." Philosopher Frantz Fanon, writing about colonized people generations later, argued that reclaiming one's own culture is itself a psychological act of liberation. Vodou did that a century before Fanon ever put pen to paper. Part 4. Bondi, the Loa, and Belief. In Vodou, there is a supreme creator called Bondi who is the good god. But Bondi is distant, vast, and unreachable, much like the god of many traditions who feels too enormous to speak to directly. So practitioners turn to the Lawa, spirits who govern love, war, water, death, and everything between. Think of them less like separate gods and more like specialized aspects of one divine reality, each one fluent in a different language of human need. Struggling with love, you call on Ezeli Frida, facing an ending, a crossroads, a death. You call on Baron Samedi or Papa Legba, the guardian of the threshold between worlds. This is where it gets psychologically fascinating. During ceremonies held in a spiritual house called an Aunfo and led by a priest, the Ungan or priestess, the Manbo, a little Bellois may mount or inhabit a practitioner, possessing them briefly to speak directly to the community. Skeptics call it performance. But consider what's actually happening. A grieving mother, a frightened teenager, or a man carrying shame for a few minutes under drumming and dancing are given permission to become someone else entirely. They can say the unsayable. They can grieve the ungrievable. Modern psychology calls this dissociation and studies it as a trauma response. Vodou got there first. Instead of pathologizing it, Vodou gave it a ritual container, a community, and a purpose. Part 5. A tool for healing. The famous French philosopher René Descartes famously tried to split the universe into the mind and the body, treating the conscious self as a ghost in a mechanical machine. But anyone who has survived a terrible ordeal knows that this split is not a philosophical theory, it is a painful, disquieting reality. The purpose of Vodou is to heal and to serve the spirits. This is called Sevi Lawa. This is not just prayer as it is a relationship, it is practical. You're asking for health, protection, and favour. Here is an astonishing little-known fact. Haitian Vodou is a legitimate framework for mental health. In Haiti, there is a saying, toute maladie par maladie doctée, which means not all illnesses can be treated by doctors. For the majority of Haitians, mental illness is understood through a spiritual lens. Psychotherapy is a luxury, but healing, that is a necessity. The Mambos and Houngans, priests and priestesses of Vodou, are the primary mental health providers in the country. They heal trauma that is both personal and systemic. The training to become a Vodou healer takes 5 or more years. They perform a passé leçon, a sort of diagnostic interview. They examine your dreams, your relationships, your wrongs, and your community. They understand that trauma is not just in the head, it is in the relationship, it is in the environment. The rituals are treatments. They might include cleansing baths to clear bad luck or bad energy. They might involve offerings to an angered lawa and a way to repair a spiritual relationship that has been broken. This isn't superstition. This is a sophisticated system of psychodrama, community support, and reconnection. In the West, we isolate trauma, we reduce it to a chemical imbalance in the brain, something you medicate. A diagnosis like major depressive disorder sounds final, separate, and deeply lonely. But in Haitian Vodou, illness is cosmocentric. It means you are not separate from your world. You're impacted by it. Your illness is a signal that the web is out of balance, and you must call upon the community and the spirits to repair it. There are no solitaries in Vodou. A person must have a relationship with their elders. Vodou is a profound critique of the Western idea of rugged individualism that is making us sick. Part 6. The Two Souls and the Ancestors. Vodou teaches that every person carries two souls. The Gwo Bon Ange is consciousness, your awareness, and the part of you that thinks and reasons. The Ti Bon Ange, the little good angel, is your life force, your unique spark, your personality. When you die, your soul journeys back to Guinan, which is the ancestral African homeland of the spirit. Ancestor veneration isn't optional in this tradition, it's the backbone of it. The dead are not gone. They are consulted, fed, honoured, and argued with. When a person goes through a horrific, traumatic event, this philosophy explains that the Ti Bon Ange can become detached or weakened, leaving the individual feeling hollow, anxious, and deeply disconnected from their surroundings. This is a brilliant, intuitive explanation for what modern medicine calls dissociation. Instead of viewing this state as a broken mechanism, it views it as a spiritual displacement. The ultimate goal of their rituals is never to punish the self or excise the pain, but to restore a delicate and necessary balance between these two forces. If you grew up in a family where death was whispered about and never discussed, where grief was something to get over quickly and quietly, then this idea might seem odd. Vodou says your dead are still part of your dinner table. Existential philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once wrote that life must be understood backwards but lived forwards. Vodou builds an entire spiritual system around exactly this tension, honouring the past while still moving forward. Part 7. The objection you may be having. Now, some of you are thinking that this still sounds like superstition, that spirit possession isn't real, that animal sacrifice sounds brutal, and that this can't be relevant to my actual life. Fair. Here's the honest answer. You don't have to believe a Lawa is literally inhabiting a human body to recognise the genius of the system underneath it. Offerings of food, rum, and yes, sometimes animals aren't cruelty for its own sake. They mirror reciprocity. They mirror the ancient idea that you don't just take from the spiritual world, that you give back to it. And whether or not you believe spirits are literal, the psychological function is undeniable. You receive a community witnessing your pain, ritual giving it shape, and ancestors reminding you that you are not the first person to survive something unbearable. Part 8. The myth of dark magic. The reality is that every single spiritual tradition on earth has a shadow side, an aspect that can be manipulated by desperate or malicious people for personal gain. In Vodou, there are indeed sorcerers known as bokor, who work with both hands, meaning they are willing to perform malicious magic for a price. But reducing this entire beautiful religion to the actions of a few rogue practitioners is like judging the entire medical profession based on a single corrupt doctor. The overwhelming majority of practitioners view their faith as a path of pure healing, justice, and community protection. The negative stereotypes are a direct result of centuries of systemic, deliberate demonization. Colonial rulers were absolutely terrified of this religion, and for a very good reason. It gave enslaved people the psychological power to realize they were human beings who deserved freedom. Vodou was driven underground because it was a weapon of liberation. When the mainstream media portrays it as an ugly, dangerous cult, they are simply repeating the propaganda of the old empires who wanted to keep people compliant, isolated, and afraid. Part 9. why this persecution never stopped. Even after the Haitian Revolution succeeded, Vodou didn't get to rest. Colonial powers were gone, but the stigma stayed and mutated. The Catholic Church ran anti-superstition campaigns against Vodou for decades. American occupying forces in the early 20th century helped popularize the zombie myth that Hollywood later turned into a punchline. Haitian governments themselves, eager for international legitimacy, sometimes distanced the nation from its own founding faith. Think about how disorienting that is. A religion that literally freed a country was treated by that same country's leaders as an embarrassment they wanted to hide. If you've ever felt pressure to downplay the parts of your story that made you who you are, that tension should feel painfully familiar. Part 10. The revolution nobody taught you. Here's the part that should genuinely stun you. In August 1791, a Vodou ceremony at Bois Caiman, led by a priest named Duty Boukman and a priestess named Cécile Fatiman, are widely credited as the spark that lit the Haitian Revolution. Enslaved people gathered in secret under thunder and rain and made an oath to the spirits and to each other. Within days, the uprising began. 13 years later, in 1804, Haiti had done the unthinkable. They defeated the armies of Napoleon Bonaparte, abolished slavery, and established Haiti as the world's very first free black republic. It was the only nation ever founded by a successful slave revolt. That's not folklore, that's history. And it was born inside a religious ceremony the world still tries to dismiss as superstition. Part 11. Why this actually matters to you. Strip away the geography and Vodou is teaching something almost every person eventually needs to learn. It teaches that your pain doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It just goes underground and waits. That healing isn't a solo mission, it's communal. Vodou teaches that the parts of yourself you had to hide to survive aren't shameful, they're sacred. They deserve a ceremony too, not just silence. Vodou never asked its people to be fine. It asked them to be honest, in front of witnesses and with drums loud enough to drown out the shame. Part 12. Bringing it home. So the next time someone reduces Vodou to a horror movie trope, you'll know the real story. Vodou is a resilient, resourceful faith built by people who were told they had nothing, and who turned grief into rhythm, trauma into ritual, and survival into freedom. Maybe you don't call on Azili Dantor or Papa Legba, but maybe you can borrow the deeper truth underneath their names. You can know that your wounds deserve witnesses, your psyche deserves honesty, and your soul, however split or scattered it feels right now, deserves its own ceremony too.